doing this thing of, like really getting in the moment with each other and connected. And it feels so good. And we tend to want more of that. And especially when not only does it feel good in the moment, but it is having beautiful impacts in our lives. Like I said, I owe my life to this practice in a lot of ways. I think that there comes a time to take what we're learning in circling and integrate it into our lives. And one of the best ways to do that, I think, is actually through learning how to circle. Because when we learn how to circle, all of our stuff comes up. This isn't therapy where I think a lot of therapists, and I don't know this for certain, but I think therapists are often trained to kind of be a little bit of a blank slate and not really include themselves in the conversation. We include ourselves in the conversation and circling. I am a human. I'm a person with you, relating as a person. We're being people together. We're in different roles, but I'm going to be bringing myself to that conversation, sharing impact, having my own experience. I don't think we can be like good leaders in the present moment, able to show up for ourselves and others if we're not having a relationship with the moment and our bodies are a part of that moment.
Huge part of it.
That we've been told in our culture, at least I've been told this, don't worry about your body. It's separate. If you have an ailment, take a pill. If you don't want to get pregnant, take birth control. Don't learn about your cycle. You don't need to. You don't need to know about your body. You just need to know that it carries your head from one room to another. But if I don't have that relationship with my body, then I'm actually not allowing myself to be in relationship with the present moment.
The container is now open. In this second part of our conversation with Melody Indigo Markel, we go beyond circling and discuss how these practices open up an entirely new frontier of being that Melody calls embodied leadership. If you aren't sure what circling is, check out our first interview with Melody. Link in show notes. Now, here's the second half of our interview with Melody Indigo Markel. Enjoy.
Yeah, so circling is this beautiful modality for exploring all of these things about human psychology and I think just be in genuine contact with spirit, and it has completely transformed my life, and I think it's transformed all three of our lives in really significant ways. And so tell us why it is not actually the center of
why it's not the be all end all of relational work. Yeah.
Let's go beyond circling here.
I'm gonna give like maybe a 3-part answer to this, which I think I've been doing this whole time. So let's just roll with it. First, I want to say I love circling. I love circling. How could I not? Oh my God, it's amazing. I don't want anybody to walk away from this thinking that I'm bitter. That I'm not. I've also been doing it a long time. And I think that's really normal and natural for our feelings about a thing to change when we've been engaging with them for me, it's been 11 and a half years. And not just engaging with it a little bit, like really being steeped so deeply in it. So my feelings about it have changed over the years. I do want to say that yes, it has like the effects on my life, profound, formidable, unbelievable. I don't think that I would be in any way the person sitting across from you today if it weren't for that. I was so where I found circle. I'm always Melody, like the crux of me, my essence is always there, but I've had hard things happen in my life that really kind of blurred how I was able to see myself and how I was able to engage with the world before some of my own blind spots really got illuminated to me through this practice of circling. And I will, in a lot of ways, I owe my life to this practice. Um, I feel kind of like, oh yeah, that's true. And that feels big to say in that way. So um that's all true. And yes, something I've seen over the years is just this thing of almost like an addiction or an obsession can start to form with circling because it does feel really good. It does do the thing of I don't want any scientists to get mad at me, but like whatever those happy chemicals are in the brain, whether it's like dopamine or serotonin, I'm not really too versed on what the difference between them are. I don't think it's dopamine, but it's like when we're doing
Oxytocin.
this thing, is it oxytocin? Okay. When we're doing this thing of, like really getting in the moment with each other and connected, and it feels so good. And we tend to want more of that. And especially when not only does it feel good in the moment, but it is having beautiful impacts in our lives. Like I said, I owe my life to this practice in a lot of ways. So of course I want more of that. Of course I want more of what feels good. Like my boyfriend asked me recently, like, would you ever stop talking to me if I didn't like hang up the phone first? And I was like, no, I love talking to you. Of course I want more of what's feel good. I'm extroverted. He's introverted. Anyway. Um, so 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 there's all that. I think that there comes a time to take what we're learning in circling and integrate it into our lives. And one of the best ways to do that, I think, is actually through learning how to circle. Because when we learn how to circle, all of our stuff comes up. This isn't therapy where I think a lot of therapists, and I don't know this for certain, but I think therapists are often trained to kind of be a little bit of a blank slate and not really include themselves in the conversation. We include ourselves in the conversation and circling. I am a human. I'm a person with you, relating as a person. We're being people together. We're in different roles, but I'm going to be bringing myself to that conversation, sharing impact, having my own experience. And because of that, like in the story where I was called a bitch in a circle, that can sometimes trigger my own stuff. And so the way that we taught circling at T3, we called them training circles, where we actually would circle somebody as they were circling somebody else. And so, and the person whose time it was, like whose training circle it wasn't the person being circled at the end of the line. It was the person who was circling. It was their time. It was their time to get trained. It was their time to have all of their stuff come up while they're leading and be able to say, pause, I need help, pause, I'm having stuff come up, pause, I don't know where to go next. What tools are in my tool belt? Or I can't keep going because I'm having all this stuff come up around my dad or my mom or my ex, or I'm just flooded or I'm too tired or and then we circle them and we put attention on them. And we would often say to be a good circler, one must be circled often
Mm.
because we need to know what is happening inside of here, what might come up. We need to know how to stay in our seat, even if someone's calling us a bitch, or even if they're talking about that they're having like memories come up of maybe hard things, maybe abuse, maybe abandonment, maybe eating disorders or whatever. Like there's, hard stuff happens in life and that comes up for people in circles sometimes, not all the time. It's not necessarily what we're after here, but we never know what's going to show up when we enter into a circle with somebody. And therefore, we have to know how am I, as a facilitator, going to be able to relate or not with this thing when it shows up, which actually is like life because it's really the same thing that when I'm talking with a parent, a child, a colleague, is my stuff going to get triggered? Absolutely. My worthiness, my insecurities, my accomplishments, my fears, my hopes, that's going to be happening in life too. And so I actually think that the biggest gift of circling at the end of the day, not that the other gifts aren't so unbelievably important, but actually what becomes more amazing for the longevity of what we might get from this practice is actually being able to be really embodied leaders because that's what life asks of us actually.
Mm.
Ta-da.
Thinking
Sometimes I don't know that I'm soapboxing until I get to the end. I'm like, whoa, I really just said all this.
Yeah. Oh, I being embodied leaders in every aspect of our life is what I'm imagining you mean. Like
Yeah.
being an embodied leader as a partner, being an
Mhm.
embodied leader as a mother, being
Yes.
embodied leader as an employee is
Yes.
what you mean?
Yes. I think Honestly, I think every opportunity of our lives is an opportunity to be an embodied leader, even if we're just by ourselves. Even that decision of, oh, it's really cozy in bed and I really want to watch this Netflix show. But if I don't get up right now, then I'm going to be like late getting this thing done that I promised my friend I'd give to them. Like, that's a leaderful moment to then choose to get out of bed and like finish up the thing for their friend. Like, that's also being an embodied leader. It doesn't even have to be with another person because we're always in relationship, even if it's just with ourselves.
That makes so if you listen to other episodes of The Container, you will find
Which you
out
should.
that
I've listened to a few, yeah.
Subscribe.
I have a relationship with the term embodied.
Mm.
And I'm wondering if you can describe what because I think I do get what you're saying, but I'm just wondering if you could explain what you mean by embodied.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll also say, I didn't say this in my soapbox, but I do want to say that the skills necessary to be a good leader are the same skills that I think are required to be an embodied leader. And when I say embodied leader, what I mean is um, having, oh, I don't know if I've ever actually described this or
Mhm.
like defined this until this moment. So let's hope I do a good job. Um, it's like uh, having an exquisite relationship with myself in the present moment such that I'm actually able to show up for myself and others. And I think that part of why I like the term embodied so much, I mean, it's all over my website. Don't make fun of me for it, but I put it like basically anywhere that I could use this term embodied leader, I put it. But I really think that uh, something that is so crucial that has been all but lost in our culture is the relationship that we have with nature. I think the biggest lie that we've been sold in our culture is that we're separate from nature, and we're not. We are nature, and our bodies are nature. And we've also been sold this lie that we can be separate from our bodies. Oh, you're having an ailment, take a pill. Doesn't matter if it has 5 side effects, take 5 more pills for the 5 side effects. I mean, we see it constantly. People are really like not that healthy these days. I mean, I like I don't wanna I'm not trying to, like, shame anybody. I just think if we look kind of at the broader picture of things, kind of what's going on in our culture, there's a lot of dis-ease going on, and I don't think that's an accident. I think people are disconnected from nature and the foods that they eat and what is actually happening in their bodies and not, people haven't learned how to listen. A lot of women don't know about their cycles. That should be basic knowledge, et cetera, on and on. I could talk about this for a long time, and I won't, but just to say that when we actually choose to really build that relationship with the present moment, that is not different than saying we're going to choose to have a relationship with our body because our body is part of us and we are nature. And I'm kind of going off the rails with this, but am I kind of making sense in how I'm
Yes.
talking about it?
Yes. It's making sense.
I notice I feel confusion.
Great. I did go off the rails. Okay, that's great. Like I said at the beginning, here's a moment. This is cool. Here's a moment where I have a choice. Do I collapse? I said a confusing thing. Do I collapse? Or do I just own it and say, okay, I didn't do a good job and let's try again. And I think that that's where I'm going to go with this. But that's taken years of practice.
I
um,
yeah, I kind of want to reflect what I'm getting of what you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah, I like the what I'm sensing is that there's the presencing and connection to self
Yes.
and to other that's developed in circling are that is the set of tools that perfectly sets you up to live with those tools as the way you go through the world, which creates an opportunity um to show up, I think is the phrase you used, like to show up more for yourself and others. I'm just I wonder if that sounds true to you, and then I'm like I'm not sure I understand the embodied part.
Okay. So in the term embodied is the term body. We have bodies. And to exclude our bodies from the conversation is to
Mm.
um, I don't know what the term would be, like, to kid ourselves. We can't be I personally, I don't think we can be like good leaders in the present moment, able to show up for ourselves and others if we're not having a relationship with the moment and our bodies are a part of that moment.
Huge part of it.
Mm.
That we've been told in our culture, at least I've been told this, don't worry about your body. It's separate. If you have an ailment, take a pill. If you don't want to get pregnant, take birth control. Don't learn about your cycle. You don't need to. You don't need to know about your body. You just need to know that it carries your head from one room to another. But if I
Mm.
don't have that relationship with my body, then I'm actually not allowing myself to be in relationship with the present moment.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because yeah, I mean, at least my experience of experiencing the present moment is it is a you know, like a check in, it's like a check in
Yeah.
with thoughts, sensations, desires, emotions, like feeling states, like physical, you know, physical sensations,
Hmm.
and checking with other and seeing if that is changing that internal experience of the sensation and the thought and the desire. It is that is what circling is. That is what um embodiment in the description that you're, yeah, like the internal and external check. Like, how is it different now that I'm facing this way towards this person? How is it different now, as I'm like petting my cat? How is it different now? Like all of those
Yeah.
have, you have a different embodied experience of the present moment in each of those different relationships,
Right.
right?
Right. And I think part of what has me feel passionately about this, I've also trained with various Native and Indigenous lineages for almost the same amount of time I've been circling. It's been 10 years for that. And there's so much I've worked with around the body in this. And something I've learned is that our bodies really are mirrors for what's going on in our lives. And I think that this is becoming more mainstream, but slowly, that a lot of times ailments that we have in our bodies are actually, they're not they're not because of something going wrong in our body. It's because of something going haywire in our lives, and then it shows up in our body. And so personally, I think that we can't just discount the body and still claim that we're able to be in the present moment with anything, because like you're saying, part of circling is checking in with the body and seeing what it's like to be oriented this way versus that way, and feeling the sensations and having that inform. And in Buddhism, or at least in Shambhala, one of the things we say is that emotion equals sensation, bodily sensation plus story. So
Mhm.
if I'm just going to completely discount the body, how can I actually relate in a whole, in like a whole way to the present moment, to myself or to others? And so I think that that's why, again, I'm kind of like figuring this out with you together, but just I've pulled in a lot of ideas. But I think that's why personally I like the term embodied leadership so much, because for me, what's really important is taking account of the whole as much as I can, as many perspectives as I can, which is kind of an integral idea, so that I can lead better. And that includes all of me, and that includes my body too.
That's dope. That oh,
I just want to give a slight disclaimer, which I know that there are some folks that have a really hard time accessing their body, and that's okay. I don't want anybody to feel left out by what I just said. I'm speaking from my own personal experience. And I have a lot of space too for people that, for one reason or another, don't have as deep access to their body. And that's okay. And it doesn't mean you can't also be an embodied leader. It just means you have a different relationship to your body than I do, because of course you do, because we all do.
wow, that reminds me of like a really important experience I had with a friend once who was over at a we were having a party at my house, and up in the my attic room we were circling, obviously. And
As you do.
he wanted to try it out, and he noticed how fast we were at identifying uh physical sensations that were co-arising with, emotions or stories or desires.
Uh-huh.
And I was talking to him later, and he said, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know those physical sensations. And first I had this like default reaction of like, oh, you just have to practice more, there's like
Mm.
it's a skill issue. But then,
Uh-huh.
you know
Got a little
uh
ego in there, huh?
yeah, totally, totally.
Aw.
And then but then just listening to him more and describing his experience, it's like, oh, that is, I just can, I'm able to bring words to internal physical sensations in a way that he's that's not really the way his like
Yeah.
brain is, yeah, connecting things.
Yeah.
And it was, yeah, it was a moment where so many times I experience those differences first is like, well, you just got to try harder, like, you got to figure
Right.
it out. um but then it's like, oh, there's just difference. That's the only thing going on is difference. And it's like,
Jonathan, I'm so, so happy you said that because you're actually reminding me of the other thing that I think is one of the
mm,
biggest gifts of circling that I actually haven't thought about in a long time, but
mm,
it's so cool. And I want to say it, which is that something that's really amazing about circling is it really helps, I think, to illustrate the ways in which we're different and even celebrate those differences. And
Mm.
it's so easy, and I know this because I've done this, to believe that, well, we're all roughly the same, like usually two eyes and a nose and a mouth. And we have thoughts and we have feelings. And how I feel is probably similar to how somebody else feels. And my motivations are probably similar to somebody else's motivations, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think at its core, we are roughly the same. We want to be safe. I think that's what unites every person and all the time. We always are seeking safety. And usually, we have roughly the same physical attributes, like I said, two eyes, a nose, mouth kind of thing. But beyond that, we're really different. And it's hard to actually know that, like not just understand that, but know it
mm,
without a practice like circling or without studying something like, personality typing systems like the Enneagram, which I also teach, or human design is one my friends are really into, et cetera. If we don't have a way to really experience that, we can't know it. And I think that leads to actually a lot of dysfunction in our culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah. I noticed, I have noticed a lot that circling has, it's given me this skill to go beyond intellectually knowing that, like,
Mhm.
oh, people are having different, there's possibility that people are seeing this thing differently. And now I am very grateful for the ways circling nudges me to be able to like actually hold that in the moment when I need that information.
Yeah.
um I especially notice it in our relationship.
Mm.
It's like being able to trust when someone tells you their experience and it's greatly different from yours,
Yeah.
and having just trust that they're not trying to get away with something. They're
Yeah.
like, almost all the time people are telling the truth about what they're experiencing, to what degree they have access to it.
I want to know about Sai. You just had this like super cute little laugh. What was happening there?
Yeah, thank you for noticing that. Well, yeah, I was trying to think like specifically what Jonathan was just referring to, but then I was like giggling because it's not just the trust that, oh, somebody's trying to get away with something. It's like even that is something to make object of.
Mhm.
Like even if they are trying to get away with something, that's like probably something.
Hmm.
And just that there's just like
Yeah.
no end to like the complexity of a human being, you know?
Turtles all the way down.
It just keeps going down and down and down. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe there is an agenda, right? Like maybe that person does have an agenda, but then that it's like, but why do they have the agenda? And like, what is the driving
Mm.
force of that? And
Yeah.
like, and that really it's all innocent. Like it is all genuinely, like at the end of the day, it's innocent. It's just people innocently being human beings and like all of the ways that that is.
Mm,
And
Yeah.
yeah.
that's such a sweet essential point to get to.
Yeah.
Well, and how I I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. You guys were having such a sweet little eye contact. I'm sorry. I wish I'd waited. I got excited to say a
Back to
thing.
Melody.
Oh, shit. But just what you said of like how it's all innocent. I think that people might have I don't know if everybody would hear that and be able to jive with you on that. I'm inclined to believe you and be with you. And I wanted to add in that the way that I phrase it, and I think this is a thing that I came up with. Like I said, I like giving credit where it's due, but I think this one's mine. What I believe wholeheartedly, and with as far as I know, zero exceptions, is that everybody in every moment is doing the best that they can in each moment, given the tools and resources they have available to them in that moment.
This wonderful episode is brought to you by our fantastic patrons over at Patreon. To support the show yourself, go to patreon.com/thecontainer. Do you want to know other ways that you can support the show? Well, if you're watching YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you're listening to this as a podcast, make sure to rate and review. Now, let's get back to our conversation with Melody Indigo Markel.
Yeah, that to me really draws in how circling can be this base from which you just give yourself more tools and more capacity, and then your best is this more embodied leader format. It's
Yeah,
this-
my best is pretty good. You guys got to catch up. That was a joke for anybody who doesn't realize. If I'm ever that egoic, please just like pour water on me or something.
Hmm. Man, there's so many more things. We're just gonna have to have you on the pod a lot more because
Yeah.
there's so many things.
Yeah.
Would you be open to that? Seriously, I feel like our conversation could go on and there isn't time for it today.
Yeah.
If you would be, yeah.
I'll
There's-
come back. I like talking to you. I'm having fun.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
I've imagined that there are many people who will be listening to this or watching this in the future who will also be having a rip roaring good time and will want to figure out ways to get more stuff from you and maybe
Mhm.
exchange money for services from you. I'm curious
You
how they
know, I like that.
yeah.
Yeah, I do. I feel sad that I like that. I don't really like it is the thing. I actually don't like it. But what I do like is um having an avenue to have my life be supported by this thing that I've given so much to over so many years and that I
Yes.
think that I'm pretty good at. I don't think I'm the best at it, honestly, but I think that I'm top tier of a lot of really high caliber people in that tier, not the top of the tier, in that tier.
A lot of dignity
Um,
and humility going on in that.
I try. Okay, so ways to get in touch with me. My website is great. It's melodyindigo.com. I imagine you're able to put that in some sort of text for this episode. Um, and then also email is good too, which is melodyindigo@gmail.com. I try to keep it pretty simple. If you want to find my Instagram, which I don't use a ton, but you can, it's also at Melody Indigo. So really anywhere you find Melody Indigo online, ideally, I hope it's me. It should be, but maybe there's a site I haven't gotten to yet.
And you offer coaching?
I do. Yeah, I offer coaching, which I, of course, pull a lot from my background with circling and with integral. I also pull from things like Shambhala, which is a branch of Buddhism. I'm Shambhala level 1 certified. Also, I'm an Enneagram teacher. I pull from that. There's probably a couple other things. I'm a certified lactation counselor. If there are any new moms out there listening who need a little bit of help, I'm happy to talk about that too. And I'm also a folk herbalist. So I work a lot with plants and kind of learning about their medicine and their magic. And so if any of that is at all interesting, please, anybody listening, feel free to reach out.
Awesome.
Melody Markel, thank you for coming on The Container.
Thank you so much for having me.
The container is now closed. We are so grateful to Melody for coming on the show. She helps us fill in our view of integral circling, and for me, it really just helped to solidify my understanding of this very important lineage in the circling movement. And as always, we have a really nice way of closing. Keep it namasty.